Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Saturday Anything Goes. We're going to continue on today with using some of the beautiful DSP that is a part of our celebration, and this is the Painted Seasons. Last week you saw me take this design and make 3 cards from one 6x6 panel. Today I thought we would go ahead and concentrate on using the succulent pattern, which I think is just as pretty. Let me bring a sheet out here for you. I love the pool party and the lemon lime twist. So that's what we're going to be working with today. Instead of a card, though, I need to replenish my stash of boxes. So we're going to do 3D project. And that is this box. I've made this one here to just kind of showcase how you can use designer series paper and stamping for something lovely. You might also notice I used our brand new embossing folder. And this is one you are definitely going to want to have in your stash. It's the Country Floral Dynamic Textured Impressions embossing folder, and look at all that detail. I love it so much that I actually cut a couple of pieces out. Let me bring them over here and embossed. I did one in Pool Party, and then I also did one where I've used our blends to do a little bit of coloring. Lots of things you're going to be able to do with that embossing folder. So we'll use that as well. Now, sometimes you get a box, a gift came in a box, and the box is just so pretty that you want to keep it. And a lot of times it's not just that. The outside of the box looks pretty, but the inside's decorated too. And I've always wanted to be able to decorate the insides of the boxes. So I think I figured out a way that we're going to try today. All right, so we'll pull this out of the way and put it aside. And let me just bring in the goodies that we're going to be using today. So, pardon me if I know that light is pretty bright. Let's see if I can move it off a little bit. There we go. So here's what you're going to need. We're going to stick with our Pool Party and our lemon lime twist. So for both the base and the lid, you'll need to cut 2 pieces of cardstock. And those 2 pieces need to measure 8 inches by 9 inches. Now for the decorated inside, this is what I did. Are you ready? I backed the base piece of cardstock with DSP. So I've got lots of glue on there to make sure it stays glued down. And we're going to see how this works for giving the inside base more of a finished look. And then for the lid, obviously we're going to decorate the top of it, but we're going to do some tone-on-tone stamping to provide a little bit of contrast when you open up the box, as well as make it look finished. And then for the top, we're going to use that Country Floral embossed panel. Here I've done it in white. I really like the crispness of it. And we're going to back that with some of the succulent DSP just to give it a nice border. And I've got some ribbon and sentiment and some panels to put on the outside, so you kind of get the idea. Let's go ahead and get started. Now the measurements on this are pretty simple as far as scoring. So both of my pieces are 8 by 9, right? I'm actually going to be scoring, because this is going to be the inside, remember? So I'm going to score on the cardstock or Pool Party side of that piece that I backed with the DSP. And we're going to score, since this is the base, it's pretty simple. You're just going to score it at 2 inches all the way around. Because we have DSP on the back, I'm making sure that I use a firm hand when I am making my score lines. I want it to go all the way through and score that DSP as well. And as you can see, it did a good job of scoring the DSP. So just 2 inches all the way around. For our lid, and I think what I want to do, because this is going to be stamped, I think I want to go ahead and do my stamping before I do my scoring, because remember, this is going to decorate the inside of the lid. And it's a reinforced lid, so some of it, when we fold it over, will not have stamping on it, but because we're doing tone on tone, it's going to look great. I'm going to use the, where is it here? The Painted Season stamp set. That's a part of that bundle that is now available if you purchase at least $100 worth of stamping supplies. You get that free. And I've already mounted my succulent stamp, a little leaf stamp, and then this cute little fill-in stamp. Because we're doing tone on tone, we'll be using Pool Party. Bring out my Pool Party here. And a lot of this is going to get cut away and hidden, but you know what? I love stamping. So I'm just going to start in the center. And like I said, this is tone on tone. And just with a random pattern, I don't even care if it's not stamped completely evenly, because we really want this to have kind of an organic look to it. And as you can see, it is not going to take me very long at all to get this completely filled in. Now we do want to come off of our page. Let me just get a piece of scratch paper here, so I don't mess up my wood grain background. But you always want to carry your stamping off the page. And that makes it look like it was just cut from a long continuous strip. So I can get another one up there. And we'll do that. So just kind of go around, fill in wherever you can, remembering that we do have a couple fill-in stamps that we're going to be using. All right, we need to carry some off the page here. Okay, I think that's enough for that. Let's bring in our leaf pattern. And again, I'm not going to be too concerned about filling in all of the spaces. Just kind of want to make it look like it's all supposed to be there. Remember to rotate your stamp so it's not boring. And carry it off the page as well. Turn your paper so you can get in all those great places that have space. Okay, now let's go to our little fill-in stamp. This is the fun one for me. I like to just go in and put happy little accents in. And it really does help to continue the design on. You can overlap some if you like. Just have fun with it. I could sit here and just cover the entire page with it, but I'm not going to get that carried away because, like I said, a lot of it, when we make the lid, will be covered up because it's a reinforced lid. Okay, 1 or 2 more. I think that's good. So that's it for our stamping. We can put our Pool Party away. Hello, Kim. Thanks for joining today. All right, now I'll bring the scoreboard back in. And since this is our lid and we want this to be the inside, remember, we're going to score on the opposite side. For our lid, we're going to score on all 4 sides at 1 inch and at 2 inches. But because My base and my lid are from the cardstock. For each piece of that is the same. I want to give my lid just a little extra room. So what I'm going to do, and you can, if you want, you can take a piece of paper and use it as a shim. So I could take a piece of cardstock here and just lay it there and then butt my paper up, or you can just pull your paper out a little bit. Either way is fine. I'm pretty comfortable doing it this way. And as I mentioned, for the lid, we're scoring at 1 inch and at 2 inches. And that's going to give us our fold over pieces in order to make it reinforced. Again, I'm going to shimmy it out just a little bit and score at 1 and 2. I thought about having this already scored before we came on, but I really did want to show you that when you are decorating the inside of your box, how you want to be sure that you're scoring on the opposite side. Okie dokie. Last score lines, and we're done with our scoreboard. Okay. We're going to cut this all out. Excuse the camera shaking. So let's fold and burnish. Bone folder here. Look at how pretty that is. I love that. I just love it. You do want to make sure, especially when you're working with reinforced lids, that you do take your bone folder and really burnish those edges. So when you fold over those pieces, they have a nice crisp finish without cracking. All right, let's bring back in. Now this is the first time that I have attempted to work with DSP glued on the back of cardstock that is then scored. So we may have to just be a little careful when we're doing our folding, but it will work, I'm sure. That looks good. And you might have to use your fingers to help it a little bit, but this is why those deep score lines really come in handy. Just make sure it's straight. And as you can see, the reason that I scored on the opposite side that the DSP is on is because the DSP is going to be on the inside. Another nice thing about this is that it's going to make our box stronger. So it's not quite so wobbly on the inside. Okay, now let's get down to cutting. And we want to make the 4 corners here our flaps. And I think the best way to do that is I'm going to cut along the score lines where the long end is, and then wedge out and wedge out. Just like that. When I cut, I'm on the taking out that bulky score line there. That always helps when you're folding your box and gluing it together to make sure you don't end up with any additional bulk. All right, so we have that so far. And we'll continue that on this side. And I'm not wedging out a ton, but I do want to make sure that I get that bulky score line out. All right, last flap. And that should do it. So this is how our box is going to come together. This will come up. This will come up, and then we will glue those flaps down. You'll know if you wedged out enough, because when you pull these up, You don't want to see anything sticking out of that top edge. And it looks like we did a pretty good job there. I like to use liquid glue as my adhesive, and you'll be gluing on the outside portion of the flap. And then just line up your edges so they meet. And with my bone folder, I'm going to give it a really good press. And then we'll just continue that on for the rest of our flaps. I like my liquid glue because it helps me be able to position it correctly. It gives me a little bit of extra time in case I need it. Now, yes, you're still going to see the flaps on the inside, but with this pattern, they're really not terribly noticeable. I think I'll do both flaps at once just to make it a little bit easier. But I'll just position one at a time, making sure I get right up to that edge for a nice finish. And then, like I said, make sure you're giving it a really good press. And as you can see, now the inside of our box has a finished look, and it's much sturdier. The sides don't flop inward. So I really like that. All right, let's move on to our lid. When you're doing a reinforced lid, the outside flaps are going to fold over and provide that reinforcing. So there are, let me just draw this out for you. There are 3 pieces that we won't need. We won't need this, this, or this on all of the corners. All right, so we're going to lose those pieces, and then we'll actually cut our flaps. Remember to take out your score lines. Now here, I am not going to wedge on these corners here because I want that to have a nice, when I fold it over, to really get in the edges there. And I'm just going to cut all of this out here and cut this one out, taking out my score line. And then I cut up this piece right here, and this is what creates our flap for gluing the box shut. I will wedge that flap to take out some bulk, just like that. So pretty easy to do. So again, I'm going to take out these pieces. And this piece. And then cut up this piece and wedge. You know, when I first started doing boxes, it really took me a while to sit down and remember what pieces I was supposed to cut off. And I can't tell you how many times I have ruined a box or two. For instance, here I need to pay attention. This is going to be my flap, so I don't want to cut all of that. I'm just cutting off these pieces and losing this outside piece. I think this is going to look really pretty with that stamped inside. So don't be afraid. If you're making a box, put your X's on there to make sure that you don't cut off a piece that you might need. All right. We'll cut up and wedge this flap, and then we'll be ready to assemble our lid. So as you can see, I didn't have a lot of waste. This is how this is going to come together. So these flaps will fold in to form the box, and then all of these sides will fold over. Now you could just glue these big flaps here and it would hold these in place, but I really like to make my boxes secure. So I'm also going to glue down my little flaps. I just forgot to take out my score line there. Okay. All right, so I'll glue down my little flaps. You certainly can use tear and tape if you're more comfortable with that. It is completely up to you. So I'm just marrying the edges. Come on, Linda. Should give it a moment to dry before I take my hand away. When you've got that extra flap, it can be a little bulky there to hold on to, but just be patient with it. You can bend your flap out if you need to, but make sure you get a nice crisp edge there. All right, now we'll move on to these flaps. Little ones first, and then I can glue down my big ones. And just hold it there for a moment. Let that liquid glue really start forming a bond before you move over to the other side. Then we can take our bone folder and burnish down those inside flaps. Okay, now for the fun. We get to glue down these. And again, you could use tear and tape to do that. I'm going to fold mine out a little bit just so I can reach them. But I'm going to use my liquid glue. So just put some on the flap. And fold it down. And here I do want to burnish because remember, I did not wedge. I'm even going to use the pointed end of my bone folder. I want to make sure that it lays completely flat. And I didn't wedge because, specifically because I wanted that nice, clean finish. All right, I'll do my other short flap here. And then we'll be ready to, once we get the other two glued down, decorate. The fun part, right? But if you want to have a nice sturdy box that doesn't come apart, this is important. Taking the time to use that bone folder and get in those corners. You don't have to use a ton of glue. Just make sure you get a little bit on all of the flap, because that's what will hold it down. All right, one left. Remember, this is our lid. And there we go. Look at how pretty that is. A nice finished inside. And to me, I don't know. I just really like it when things look finished like that. Okay, moment of truth. Is our lid going to fit on our box? Remember, we shimmied out just a little bit to make sure that it would, but we also, this is a little bit bulkier because I backed this with DSP. But there we go. A nice snug fit. All right, let's have some fun and decorate. So where are my goodies? They're all over here. We'll save the box for last. And what I did was I cut out of the DSP, I cut 2 longer strips and 2 shorter strips of the succulent DSP. So if my box is 4 by 5, then that would make each of these strips be what, 4 and let's say I left just a tiny border, so maybe 7/8, might even be 15/16. But you can cut, I would start out cutting with the 15/16, and then if you need to cut it down a little bit, you have the room to do that. So those are the 2 long pieces. The shorter pieces, which fit on my 4-inch side, are going to be the 3 and 15/16 or 7/8, whichever you prefer. And all we have to do here is just glue these down. So the rest of this goes together pretty darn quick. Again, I'm using liquid glue so that I can squidge it around and make sure that there's just a little border on all the sides. If you have a directional DSP, of course, you're going to want to make sure that the DSPs go in the right direction. But luckily for me, with these succulents, they were going every which way. Didn't have to pay particular attention. Oh, I gave you the width measurement or the length measurement, but not the width measurement. So these are just under 2 inches, all 4 of them, just under 2 inches. So what, 1 and 15/16 or 1 and 7/8, whichever you prefer. Just depends on how much of a border of that cardstock you want to show through. All right, last one here, and we will be done with the base. And we can work on our lid while those pieces are drying. And the lid is really easy to decorate. I cut another piece of the succulent DSP. This is going to be just under 4 inches by 5 inches. So again, that 15/16 or 7/8, it depends on how much of a border you want. Ooh, I'm almost out of liquid glue. Hopefully I get through the rest of the project before I have to break out a new bottle. All right, so we'll just align that. Come on, line up, don't stick. Gotta love your liquid glue. There we go, much better. All right, and then we have that lovely embossed panel. And the embossed panel, I will measure for you because I actually had cut it and then had to cut it down. Your embossed panel is going to be 3 and 5/8 by, is that right? No, wait, that's not right. Let me get out my ruler. It'll work better. I love my T-square. Okay, so this is 4 and 5/8 by 3 and 3/4, looks like. Before I glue this down though, I did want to use some ribbon. So I cut, if I can find it here, there it is, a nice length of our pool party shimmer ribbon and just tied a bow in the middle of it. And using glue dots, I'm going to secure this down towards the bottom 1/4, I would say, of the panel. And I found that glue dots really work the best for attaching your ribbon. So let me just bring mine out here. And I always like to do one side at a time. So I've got that one down. You can use the grid lines on your matte paper to help you line it up. That's a bit long, so I'll cut some off. And the glue dots are great also because we have a deeply embossed panel. All right, then this you can either straight glue down or you could pop it up on dimensionals. I'm going to straight glue it down just because since it is so heavily embossed, I just want to make sure that it sticks well, especially if I send this through the mail. It helps if I put it right side up. And you can put your ribbon at the top or the bottom, just wherever you like. This one, I think I will have it at the top. Here, again, because it's deeply embossed, I want to press it down and just hold a little bit of pressure on it to make sure that it is firmly secure. And I like that there's just enough of that DSP showing through to help it stand away from the pool party itself. All right, let's see. So that's it for the ribbon. For my sentiment, where is it? Where is it? There we go. For my sentiment, I chose a really pretty sentiment out of the Very Vintage stamp set. I love this stamp set, which is one of the best things in life is you. So that means I can use my box for multiple things. I can use it for a birthday, for just because, anything where I want to show that I'm appreciating the person who's getting it. And I will glue the sentiment to the mat I made out of the DSP, but then I'm going to pop those up because I do like a little bit of dimension. And if you notice on the sentiment panel, I stamped the saying in black, and then I took the pool party and that succulent stamp, and I just stamped along the very edge to help fill in that white space. All right, let me bring out my dimensionals here. And then we have one more thing to do, and we will be done. Now, again, if you wanted, you could take, before you put the embossed panel down, and put a little bit of pool party on a sponge dauber and lightly sponge over the raised areas if you want to give them even more definition. I chose to just leave them white. Pardon my head if it gets in the way. Just want to try and line that up so that we have it like that. We will put a couple of embellishments on, but before we do that, we've decorated everything else, but I kind of have a naked lid from where it sits here. So I just cut some small strips, and these are just under 1 inch in height and 3 7/8 or 15/16, whatever you like to leave a border for the short sides, and then for the long sides, again, just under 1 inch and just shy of the 5 inches. So we'll glue those down, and that will be help give our lid a nice border to go along with the DSP that we put on the base. So how are we doing on time? Oh, good. This didn't take us very long at all, seeing as how we made a box. With the DSP, I've seen some demonstrators actually put the DSP on before they fold and put together their box. I'm just not that coordinated. I usually end up getting a piece in the wrong place. But some people find it easier to line up these strips if they're doing it on a flat surface rather than a box lid that's already made. Okay. And I have quite a bit of bulk in here now, seeing as how I also added DSP on top of our box. But I think I can still get it to close down. On my next one, I might shimmy out my lid when I'm scoring it just a little bit more. But yes, it does fit. And you can see how adding that bit of a border here on the top of the lid just helps make it look finished all the way around. Well, let's put a couple of embellishments on this and then we'll call it done. What do we want to put? Pearls are going to be too light. They won't really show up. Rhinestones would be nice for a bit of glitter. But I kind of like the softness. I want to keep it soft. So maybe what I'll do is, let's see. We can take our pearls and we can color them with our blends. So I can use, there's no lemon lime twist, but I know there should be a pool party here that we have in our blend collection. So I pulled out my dark pool party, and I don't need a ton of these, but I think I want mostly the mid-size. So I'm using the brush tip, and you'll notice I'm doing this before I even take it off the page. You want to make sure you get down to the very, very bottom there. And just give them a second to dry. And then you've got your take your pick tool that has the spatula on one end. Very good for getting underneath and pulling these off. So let's just decide where we want. I know I want one right here. Set off the center of that flower. And you can have as many as you like. I typically work in odd numbers. I find they work well. So I've got, where are areas? There's an area I could stick one where that flower is. And try to do it in a triangular shape. So there, and let's do it right here. All right, I think that's all I want to do to it. Just a few embellishments can really add that finishing touch. Hello, Sharon. Thanks. So remember, if you're making a box, think about not just the outside, but think about your inside too. If it looks just as pretty as the outside, people are really going to enjoy using it long after the gift you've given them is gone. Well, I hope that you all enjoyed the project today and that you'll give it a try. If you have any questions at all about the supplies used or the dimensions for making the box, I will have this up on YouTube probably later on this evening. And then I will try to get a blog post done by tomorrow that you can go out there for more information. And to view my blog, where you can also purchase any supplies, it's cardsbywinnie.wordpress.com. Thanks everybody for taking time out of your afternoon today. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye now.